Now, about this fellow Harold Rhode, who I've gotten to know over the past 2 days quite well. He truly is a walking encyclopedia of Islam. For those of you younger than 40 who have no idea what an encyclopedia is, please feel free to speak with me after the event. I would not say he is a walking Wikipedia, because that stuff's all made up. For those of you over 50 who have no idea what Wikipedia is, don't ask me, because I don't either. But this gentleman is one of the finest objective experts on Islam, and he's a protege of the great scholar and historian of the Middle East, Bernard Lewis, and former senior official in the Pentagon, who has dedicated his life to exploring Islam and its historical richness. As a young student, Harold lived and studied in Iran, Turkey, and many parts of the Arab world. As a Pentagon official working in the Office of the Secretary of Defense, he observed the reemergence of Islam and the threat that it would pose to liberal democracies around the world. Nearly 3 decades of Pentagon service later, a distinguished senior fellow at the Gatestone Institute in New York and senior fellow at the Jerusalem Center for Public Affairs, Harold sees clearly that the conflict between Islam and the West is far from over. From an Islamic point of view, such conflict can only end when the entire world converts to Islam. Notwithstanding the complete subjugation of the West, we will remain locked in an unending power struggle unless the Muslims re-examine their sources and devise ways to live with non-Muslims. And I remind you, 6 years ago, in this auditorium, we had 5 incredibly brave liberal Muslims who spoke with us about their efforts to change the general concept and feelings about taking over the entire world, coming from Islamists. The difference between Islamists and Islam we will touch on as well. And that amounted to nothing short of a thought revolution on the part of what these 5 liberal Muslims were trying to do. And each one of them was risking their lives and livelihoods, speaking the way they spoke out. One of them, if you remember, was a Navy captain named Judy Jasser, who is running for a congressional seat out of a district in Arizona. So these people were extremely, extremely brave. So we're going to learn quite a bit today from Dr. Harold Rhode, and I would like you to join me in welcoming him to this pulpit.
I hope you'll tell me why I'm wrong if you have your different experiences. That's how you learn, you exchange ideas. I can only talk, I'm going to talk from, it's easier, okay. I want to talk from my own experience. As you can see, I'm obviously a Jew. I have a kippah on my head. I'm almost 75. That happened when I was 44. All the traveling and living in the Muslim world, but before I worked for the Pentagon, was, as a young person, most of the time alone, studied. I went to university in Iran, right during the early and mid stages of the revolution, in a place called Mashhad out in the northeast. There was a lady who has been back and forth in Afghanistan, and that's where we fled to. when it became too difficult. In '73, right before the Yom Kippur War, I was studying at the American University in Cairo, and I was all over the place. I had one goal. I wanted to find a way that Muslims and Jews could live together in peace. Now, for someone growing up in the United States, I think you could say it's a pretty admirable goal. We all used to, at least those of us that are older, we know when we were younger, most people got along. It didn't matter who you were. You managed. Well, it's a very nice view. And I was in the beginning, before Bernard Lewis adopted me. I don't mean legally. In my marriage, for example, he's the one who spoke. My father was long dead. He spoke as if he were my father. I was making terrible mistakes. What were the mistakes? I was trying to understand the Islamic world in terms of how I thought about the world, how an American thinks about it. I didn't know I was wrong. Look, America, the world, the Western world was leaving religion. And so most of the world, they were into nationalism and love of their country. And I figured, oh well, then they were too. And on the day that Yasser Arafat spoke at the UN, the Palestinian, let's be polite and call him a terrorist, because once you deal with him personally, you realize that's an understatement. And he never lied to us. We just didn't want to hear. But once I learned and once I saw, I gave a speech the next day in Philadelphia, which is where I'm from, towards an Arab-Israeli peace and understanding. Boy, was I wrong. And what happened was, Bernard Lewis in 1976 wrote an article called The Return of Islam. This is 2 years before the Iranian Revolution, and he was saying, in the article he argues and proves that you have to understand Islam, the Arabs, the Turks, and the Persians, the way they understand themselves. And that my view, when I was saying, oh well, we're leaving religion, and I saw Islam as a religion, even though I understood somewhere deep inside that it was not, it was a peoplehood, it was everything wrapped up together, and believe them about what they say. Just for example, Yasser Arafat, 2 weeks after he signed the Oslo agreements, was in South Africa, and he is speaking to a bunch of Muslims in a mosque, and they're saying, how could you sign that you made peace with Israel? He said, he smiled and said, that's not what I did. I copied what our prophet, Muhammad, did. What did he do? When you're weak, you make a temporary agreement, and he made an agreement with his enemies for 10 years. But 10 years ended in 2 years. When they were weak, then you attack again. There is no concept of peace. Salam doesn't mean that. But I want to just do 2 or 3 things in the beginning, and then Alan we'll have a conversation. I think he has some ideas. I lived a Muslim life. I was trying to figure out how I learned their cultures. I spoke very good in Arabic, Turkish, and Persian. I lived in these countries, in their languages, in their cultures, just to try to understand. I once could daven, I could pray better as a Muslim than as a Jew. I didn't know I was a Jew until I was 5 years old when my parents died, and they were both, they didn't even know Hebrew letters, so I don't come from a Jewish background. Well, here's where I want to start with 2 concepts, and then Alan will come up and we'll, whatever. How do the Muslims see the world? And they didn't lie to me. They told me. Just like Arafat said, all I did was sign a temporary agreement. And then afterwards, once the Israelis believe that we're weak, that we really mean peace, then we're going to attack. He said it. It was recorded. And no one wanted to hear that here in the United States. And they said, oh, it wasn't true. And it was just, he didn't mean it. I don't know how you get into someone's mind that you don't know, whether they mean something or not. And he said, I want to do what our prophet did. Sign an agreement. Once the Jews show that they're weak, because they're going to give up if they think we're serious, then boom, we continue on. Where does this thought come from? You must, if you want to understand other people, you must try to understand the world as they see the world. And that's what my living in the Muslim world, and I can once, as I said, pray better as a Muslim than I could as a Jew. I had no background in this. And there I learned, oh my God, they don't think like us. What Bernard Lewis wrote was right, and how do I handle this? Let me give you an example. Alan mentioned already, from a Muslim point of view, sir, there's no such thing as peace. There's nothing permanent. You wait till the other side is weak and you push on. The goal is the world. There are only two real worlds. Dar, if anybody knows Hebrew, Dira is an apartment, it's a place to live. Dar al-Islam, the world of Islam, and Dar al-Harb. Harb in Arabic means war. In Hebrew, the word is kharib. It's the same root. You can see there's a relationship between a sword and a war. And these two worlds, the world of Islam and the world of war, are in perpetual conflict forever until the entire world becomes Muslim. And the best way to do that is conquering it. It's not what I say. This is what Sharia, the Muslim holy law, is all about. I know more about Sharia than I know about the Talmud, Halakha. Let me give you, in other words, you don't know it, guys, but you were all born Muslims. You were corrupted by your parents, and you will eventually become Muslims. If it's by choice, that's fine. And if not, they know how to wait. They will make it eventually. They will capture the world. Now watch this. The word for to open in Arabic, if anybody knows Hebrew, it's the same root. It's a p or a f in Hebrew. 3 letters, potach in Hebrew, fatah in Arabic. And it has the meaning of open in Arabic, but it has a much more important meaning, and that is to open a country to Islam. In other words, once the country is captured by Islam, it's a Muslim conquest, it's fatah in Arabic. Once a country is Muslim, it must remain Muslim forever. Now, there are, if you know about Judea and Samaria, you know that, in the northwest bank, there is a city called Nablus. And you've probably heard that there is a city called Tel Aviv. Tel Aviv is in Israel proper, meaning was in 1948, when there's Israeli War of Independence. Tel Aviv, at the end of the war, became part of Israel. Nablus became part of Jordan, which was today called the West Bank by the American government. And both of those cities, or Tel Aviv didn't exist, Nablus did exist, both of those cities were conquered when the Muslims came out of Arabia, in this case 637, 638 CE AD. And since both of those cities were conquered by the Muslims back then, I now ask you, once it's Muslim, remember, it's Muslim forever. So Tel Aviv is, Nablus, we agree, is a Muslim city, but Tel Aviv is what? Who does it belong to? The Jews or the Muslims, from their point of view? What do you think? The Muslims. So what are we talking about, a two-state solution? And after the Israeli War of Independence, there was a conference, the Rhodes Conference in 1949, where arrangements were made. The Israelis wanted to call the borders that they came up with at that time, they wanted to call them borders. The Arabs refused. The Arabs said, no, they are ceasefire lines. So there never was a Palestinian state. There was supposed to have been, the United Nations voted for it, but it didn't happen. But the Arabs said there is no, you exist, this Jewish state is temporary because we can't capture you now, but we will later. Now, I guess from that, Alan, do you want to just take over and do, I can only tell you, once you begin to think like this, maybe one other thing. Now that you have how it works, once it's captured by Islam, it's Muslim forever. Anybody ever heard of a country called Spain? Obviously. Oh, thank you. Okay, watch this. The Muslims started to capture Spain. They crossed Straits of Gibraltar in 712. They were kicked out in 1492. Whom does Spain belong to now in 2024, guys? The Muslims, of course. And if you could see on the internet today, if you read the secret language that none of our American diplomats, like 2 or 3, know Arabic, Turkish, or Persian, you don't waste your time learning these languages. They're going to sign you to Fiji next visit. So, why? It's vital. If you learn and you see how they think about it, when Muslims, they write. There's a whole big discussion of how they're going to reconquer Spain and Portugal. They have the whole area. It's not permanent. It was captured by Islam. It's Muslim forever. Keep that in mind. All of Israel, therefore, belongs to the Muslims. This is how they think. It's obviously not how I think. Yes, sir. Which side do you want? Thank you.
Okay. So what I heard is that once Islam has conquered a country, no matter what happens, that land, that country belongs to the Muslims. Part of what we have seen, and of course our difficulty here is the fact that we project the way we think and what we care about and what might be brutal and what might make sense. We project this onto this other culture, and that's our problem. That's a mistake that we made at our peril.
Absolutely.
By not understanding that. Just a few examples. First of all, how many of you been to Turkey and Istanbul and saw that beautiful Hagia Sophia church, which of course was made into a mosque after it was conquered by Islam? There's another place where a temple was tried to be replaced by a mosque, Jerusalem. You have the Temple Mount, you have not one, but 2 mosques on top, if I may say so. And it's just understood that that's Muslim land. Now, when Judy and I, my wife and I, spent 3 months in a special place called the Villages in Florida, I thought that might get a chuckle. In there, the Villages Daily Sun, and this was back in January, it said, why a Hindu temple built over a mosque matters. I had never heard of this before. So in a situation where Islam will take over a country and go right to the main religious building and replace it, talk to me a little bit about why the Hindu can do this and evidently get away with it without being attacked, because that's a cardinal sin. Please.
Well, let's start with what you said, the Hagia Sophia Mosque. If you've been to Turkey, let's say 2-3 years ago, if you went into the Hagia Sophia, it was a museum. It had been the center of Byzantine Christianity. But the person who is leading in Turkey today, who is a fundamentalist, Islamic, obviously. He's a member of the Muslim Brotherhood. He changed it back from a museum to a mosque, but it had been the church of the Byzantine Christian world until 1453. Excuse me, and it was conquered by Mehmed, which is Muhammad in Turkish. Fatih. Fatih is the conqueror, the opener. Remember the idea of the root I said, it means to open. He opened the land for Islam. And so he was, what is he, a can opener? He opened it. And the first thing he did was go to the center of Christianity and bang, he covered the whole thing with not stucco, it's a white sort of calcium covering, so everything was covered up, and was covered up until the early 1920s, when the guy who founded modern Turkey, a guy named Atatürk, he decided to turn this democratic secular state is what his goal was in Turkey. He wanted to turn this into a museum where it would be neutral. And they took off all the white, and there were these wonderful Byzantine icons all over the walls. Where does it come with the temple, whether it's the Hindu thing that you were talking in India or in Israel? As we said in 637, 638, what was to become the Muslims, they captured what is the Temple Mount, where the Jewish temple was built twice and destroyed twice. And only one mosque there, it's the one in the south. The second is called the Dome of the Rock. And that is the rock over where the Jewish temple stood. What the Muslims expected is when the Jews captured this, they had the keys which they were going to hand over to the Israelis.
When?
The 6-Day War. Right during, because Israel hadn't planned to take Jerusalem, is when the Jordanians attacked, because they were the ones who had all what was at the time was the West Bank of the Jordan and Jerusalem. They had East Jerusalem. The Jews had West Jerusalem. The people who were running the Waqf, that is the holy institution which runs the Muslim, the Mosque Al-Aqsa, they were ready to hand to the Jews. But the defense minister at the time, who I really don't want to go into detail to talk about, there's a lot that could be said, Moshe Dayan, what did he, we don't want to have a Vatican here, meaning a Jewish Vatican. And he said, no, give the keys back. He told the soldiers, give them back. Now, I hope we're going to talk about what is negotiations and what is victory. Bernard Lewis would say, how does Islam understand the world? I am right, you are wrong, go to hell. It means that you don't negotiate until I win. We sit down at a table, we talk, I'll give a little, you give a little, you give in a little, I give a little. We don't like each other. We've had a lot of problems, but now we need each other. You give a little of what's important to me. I give a little to you what is important. We shake hands, we smile, we put our hands on each other's back. We're now good friends. And we all march together. They can't do that. What is negotiations? You only negotiate after you win. Well, what is negotiations? Negotiations mean I'm the winner, you're the loser. I dictate the terms to you of how you're going to live. And you hate me for this. And you wait 1, 2, 3, 18 generations, but you will get me back. In other words, there's no permanent bygones be bygones. The word shalom, the concept, we look in dictionaries. Dictionaries are some of the worst books I've ever seen in my life. That's an odd thing to say. Why? Because when you look at a dictionary, let's say you look up the word shalom, and I assume most people know that is the Hebrew word for peace, and it means bygones be bygones. You and I hated each other. We have now got together, we shake hands, and we work together. And we let go of the past. Islam, there is no such thing like that. Salam, which you've all said peace, shalom, salam. Oh, it all sounds wonderful. You know what salam means? It means the joy that you get by submitting to Allah's will through Islam. And Islam itself, the word means submission. Now, we all hear about Salam Alaikum, and this is the whole thing. It also has a lot to do with the Temple Mount and all that's going on. Salam Alaikum. Oh, how you doing? You read American government army books. I was in the Iraq War, and for Arabic and Kurdish, I watched, and they handed out manuals to soldiers. Salam Alaikum. Oh, that means hi, how you doing? Well, now, I can't talk to women here. It's not allowed. I mean, now I'm again, pretend for a moment I am doing this as a Muslim. You, sir, you're a Muslim, I'm a Jew, and you know that, and you know I'm a Jew, and I say Salam Alaikum to you. You know what you say to me? Salam unto he who follows the true path. What is the true path? Islam. So it's over the years, I've lived Islam, again, almost 75, and I started this when I was 14. I remember reading the correspondence between the Saudi Arabians, and the Yemenites. They were fighting each other in the 1930s, and they hated each other, and they wrote vitriolic letters, it's in Arabic, to each other, hating each other, and if you're going to do this, I'm going to do all sorts of awful things to you. And do you know how they ended? Wassalamu alaikum. If that meant, oh, hi, how you doing? Why do you say something like that? What it means is I'm talking to a fellow Muslim. All I'm wishing for you is the joy that you get by being a Muslim and doing what Allah wants through the instructions of Islam. The Temple Mount, I don't care what it doesn't matter, Westerners, Jews, Christians, non-Muslims, whatever we think. The Muslims know, K-N-O-W, that it is theirs. And what is going to happen when they reconquer it? What are they going to do? Any Jewish thing, wipe out. You know, King David and King Solomon, which were Jewish kings, they're prophets for Muslims. And in fact, they weren't Jews because everybody was born Muslim, so they were born Muslim. And they wrote, and you can see this in English, and I'm happy to share it. I can send it to you, you can send it out to everyone. They wrote in the 1920s in English that there is no doubt that this was the temple that King Solomon built. They wrote this. But King Solomon, we said, well, therefore they recognize the Bible. Garbage. The Bible is garbage. It's not garbage. But from their point of view, it's perverted stuff. First, God only had, from the very beginning, he had one holy book. It's called the Quran. He gave it first to Musa, which is Moses, on Mount Sinai. And then, what did Moses and his people, the Jews, do? They perverted it. So God, of course, got mad. So he brought it back and gave it to a guy named in Arabic, Isa. Isa means Jesus. And then the Christians perverted it. And so he gave it. The last was to Muhammad, the Muslim prophet. And that's the truth. So that's what Moses got. He got the Quran. Jesus got the Quran. I know this sounds crazy, but remember, our goal should be is to try to understand how they think about it, because then you're going to know what's in their minds, and when they talk to you, you will know. They can say and do whatever they want, but you'll know what they're thinking about. I ask you, again, on the two-state solution that the American government has been obsessed with for I don't know how long. How can there be a two-state solution? It belongs, everything, to Islam. And I'm going to prove to you, even in people, it is in Hebrew.
Harold, sit down.
Me sit down?
What you are saying is incredibly important. I think you've gotten your point across on that.
I think from some of your faces, yes.
But it's not only the land, it's people. If someone is Muslim,
Yes.
and they decide to convert to Christianity, could you tell us, please, how Islam views that person? Even if that person, for instance, if a person's father is Muslim, and that person, even though his father is Muslim, says, I am not Muslim, how does Islam look at that person?
It's a super question. Here's why. The penalty, remember, as a land becomes Muslim, it's Muslim forever. When a person becomes Muslim, he's Muslim forever. There's no going back. The punishment for leaving, for being an apostate in Islam is dhabh, death. Now, how do you become a Muslim? We can all do it here. It is one sentence in Arabic you repeat 3 times. It is, there is no God but Allah, and Muhammad is his prophet.
Is it Beetlejuice, Beetlejuice, Beetlejuice?
That could be.
I'm
We
sorry.
can do it. Now, to your question. If your father, in Judaism, if your mother's a Jew, you're a Jew. Doesn't matter what you say, you're always a Jew. In Islam, if your father's a Muslim, you're a Muslim. Now I'm going to bring up a little thing which is on the net. There is an argument among Muslims that if someone becomes, in the non-Muslim world, in the world of war, if a Muslim becomes the leader of that land, is that land now part of the Muslim world? Well, we're going to go to somebody that you've heard about. Now, there is a leader whose father was a Muslim and his mother was not. So what are you if you're from a Muslim? You're a Muslim. And this couple, I don't know if they were married, doesn't matter. They had a son. And that son became president of the United States of America. Question, and you got the arguments on the net. You want to see it's in Arabic. Is this country now, you know who I'm talking about?
You're not saying this one way or the other. You're saying this is the way Islam looks at it.
If his daddy was a Muslim, he is a Muslim. I don't care what he says. You know, in America, you want to be this. I used to tell people when I lived in Iran and would travel all over, that, you know, today you want to be a Jew, tomorrow you want to be a Christian, the next day a Muslim, the next day a combination of everything, the day after. No one cares. They cannot fathom this. Your father is a Muslim, you're a Muslim. Now, we had a president who fits that description. So the discussion on the net is, has America now become part of the Muslim world? It's not the only country. There was a Carlos Menem who was president of Argentina. He was from Syria and from a Muslim family, but in the Argentinian constitution, I don't know what it is today, but back then, you had to be a Catholic. So he became a Catholic. From a Muslim point of view, did he become a Catholic? Of course not. So is Argentina now part of the Muslim world? I'm not answering the question. We know what we think. Your face is like, this is convoluted logic. But we need to know how they think. And that's what's going on here. And I know you would prefer if I sit down.
That's excellent. I'm confused.
And so am I.
What I'm confused about is Iran. I'm not confused about what they stand for, that they're behind all of what is going on in the Middle East. That I'm not confused about at all. The mullahs, is this an Arab country? Or is it Persia, which is Persian? And I always get confused about it. How many in the audience are confused about this? I mean, really, Arabic, Persian, please teach me. And you can sit down and teach me if you want.
Yes, sir. Okay. Anyway, if anybody's read the book of Esther, it's the Purim story. Iran at that time, Persia, whatever, it's called Paras in Hebrew, which is Persia. It says that they ruled over 127 nations. That's what it says in the book of Esther. That was part of all big part. From what is today Rhode, which is India, to Kush, which is Ethiopia. Now, so we know it was an empire. They, the Persians, have a concept of Persian culture and Persian language. You sometimes hear it called Farsi. It's the same thing. But it's Persian, originally in Iran. And when they were already an empire, a strong culture, enormous history, when the Arabs came out of Arabia and brought this new religion with them, or this new ideology, the words, even to use English words, makes them, because now if I call Islam a religion, you're going to say, but, doesn't make any sense from what I said before. We don't have the words and the concepts in English. Now, what happened in Iran is as follows. These desert nomads and the Persian concept of Arabs is, I can give you the Persian words for these things. Arabs are desert rats, lizard eaters, and nomads. Nomads are disgusting and awful. And we are civilized. We have a wonderful, again, by then, 1,100 year civilization. And these Arabs came in, who the hell are they to come and conquer me? I will teach you. I know what is best. The Arabs persisted. They conquered all the way there. By 712, besides being in Spain, they were already in what is Pakistan, which was India of the time. And the dominant culture of all from Iran of today and Afghanistan of today, of West Pakistan and most of northern India, was Persian culture. Sophisticated, beautiful arts, interesting, really, really things. And who are these desert rats? Lizards coming onto us. Everything else says the Arabs came out of Arabia, they went north. All those cultures within 100 years were basically speaking Arabic. The Arabs made them into Arabs, Arab speakers, that is. But in Persia, for the first 300 years of Islamic rule, we have no documents and we have no history to speak of. 300 years later, these people, these proud Persians, reinvented themselves. Oh, we're now Muslims. Oh, I am what you want me to be. But I'm the one, you're just desert, what the hell do you know? I become Muslim like you. But I'll teach you how to rule. I'll make you rich. I will civilize you. That's the word that they use to the Arabs. You'll rule. Oh, yes, we'll bow down to you. While we're sticking the knife in from behind because we hate you. So just in this instance, and the same is true with many, many other places that the Arabs, what became the Muslims, conquered, is that, look, let me give you an example.
Please go back to what they are now. The mullahs are the Arabs?
No.
Okay.
God forbid, from their point of view. Again, everything I'm saying, this is not what I think. It's what I learned by being with them. You heard of Shiites and Sunnis, right? And from us, well, they got a God they call Allah. They got a prophet they call Muhammad. And they got a book they call the Quran. They agree on Allah. They agree on the prophet. Their prophet is Muhammad, but he's very, very different. Has different roles in each. And they have the Quran, which is every syllable supposedly from God. But there is this fight of Persian culture, which is for 1400 plus years had to deal with Muslims, the Arabs. On the same time, Persian culture hates them. So what are they? So they have devised all sorts of ways throughout history. Iran was Sunni like everybody else was. But it's the early 16th century, they became Shiites. Why? It's one of the way of differentiating themselves from the Arabs and from all the other. This is a way of protecting themselves. We all have eaten onions in our life. What does an onion look like? It is layer upon layer upon layer protecting an inner core. That's what Persian culture has done. It seals them off. They hate the Arabs. When I lived in Iran, I can hear them say, I've even had Muslims say, I hate Islam. But they're Muslims. I know this does not sound logical, but this is the dichotomy they live in. No, don't dare call an Iranian an Arab, or they may slit your throat because you are, I have to be careful what I want to say here. If you open your mouth and say something out you can be called a racist for just, for the slightest nothing, and you know it doesn't matter what it is. The Iranians, that's how they look at the Arabs. God forbid, Shiism and the Iranian culture, which is not Arab culture. So, they are not the same by any stretch.
Okay, now that's important. Does that have something to do with the fact that given the chance, which has happened a couple of times in the last 20 years, given the chance, the Persian people will gladly overthrow the mullahs? Is that the case? And if it is the case, short answer, if it is the case, why don't we and why doesn't Israel help these people?
America's the key here. How do you overthrow the Iranian government? Please, 28 years working in Washington, working, again, as an advisor, basically on how Muslims think, Islamic culture at the Pentagon, and that includes many, many other places in the American government. And I must be honest, it didn't matter Republican or Democrat. Some were excellent and asked marvelous questions and tried to apply it. And some of both parties were not so excellent. Here's the thing. In the Middle East, since everything is power, there's no voting. What results did you win? Arafat won the first Palestinian election. He got 88% because the Americans told him he needed something lower than 99. And then he's asking, is that okay that I was 88%? They don't have elections. Everything is top down. Who is ruling Iran today? It is mullahs. These are religious people. And, they are religious leaders. And here's the thing. The Iranian people, we have all these American public opinion surveys of how people think in Iran, because they think that that people being surveyed are going to tell the truth. If I'm an Iranian and you come and ask me some questions, you may be working for the secret police. Why should I tell you? I don't know who you are. And so I say to myself, whatever you think, I think. So you can't know. Now, here's the thing. What do the Iranian people want? They hate these rulers. How do I know this? I have not been in Iran since I fled it during the mid stages of the revolution. What happens, how do we know it? Is because I watch the cartoons and I watch the jokes. Jokes are very important to understand, and because the jokes that they're making, watch this. There's a mullah in mullah uniform, guard, walking down the street, and you are in a taxi or you're in a car, and I'm just going to choose Tehran because everybody has heard, I'm sure, of the capital of Iran. And so it's just been raining, and the water drainage system is not good in Tehran. So the car will go over towards the curb and zoom up, splash the mullah. Oh, I'm so sorry. Yes. Here's the thing. How do you do this? I'm not even worried about the nuclear program now. That sounds crazy. Because it's nuclear weapons. Weapons don't kill people. People kill people. Are you worried that Britain or France, maybe France in the future, that these countries have nuclear weapons? Are you worried that America has? I think, does Canada have? Whatever. You guys, the answer is no? Okay. But you're not worried. Are you worried about India having a nuclear weapon or Pakistan having a nuclear weapon? India is basically a democracy, and it is. Pakistan is not. But you are worried about Pakistan. Here's the thing. The Iranian people, you remember there a few months ago, when the Iranians sent all these missiles and ballistic, God knows what, towards Israel. I was in Jerusalem at the time when we watched this stupid me standing out on a balcony at night watching, it looked like a fireworks show. God forbid it should have. That was dumb. I was very dumb. Israel, and it was by and large, with a little help from its friends, little. What did the Iranians went out in the street? It made their government look weak. And I have pictures of this out in the street, and it's in Persian. It says, "Bizan, strike Israel, strike, and we will go out in the streets." Once they see that their leaders are weak, they will go out and do the rest of the work. But they need to know that they have outside support. How do you get this? The Iranian leaders have, there are many factions in this government, right below the top. And many times throughout Iranian Shiite history, when one group fought the other or disagreed, sometimes it proceeded to serious violence. Now, that I can only talk from a Jewish point of view. There are many groups who don't agree with each other, but the idea that you would go out and kill somebody, it's just impossible. My argument is as follows. It is very easy to work with one group versus the other, doesn't matter who. I'll help you, and you two hate each other, and I'll help you. And you two go at it. And my job is to just stand back and let it happen. And then, I'm the Iranian people in this case now. I hate you both. All you're doing is making my life miserable. You're taking my children, my sons especially. And I must tell you the truth in Persian, and this is not something that you're supposed to be saying, even in our woke world. One of the things that concerns them is sometimes their little sons disappear. And they're brought to serve these people in the religious establishment. And I think you understand what serve means. It's not food, necessarily. If we could get the two of you to fight, then the Iranian people will see if you're weak and you're the leaders, then it's my turn to come out in the street. I'll get you and I'll get you. And that's what they were saying to Israel. And I want to tell you a problem both with America and with Israel. When you try to explain everything that I've said today, that they are seeing the world through their terms, through religious terms, and it's a religious war, people say to you, oh no, it couldn't be. I know all these people who speak perfect English. I want to tell you, the ones who speak perfect English, from my experience in all sorts of negotiations back and forth, they're the worst. Why? Okay, do you remember, I'm going to take, when there was this JCPOA, the Iranian nuclear, it was the American-Iranian nuclear deal in 2015. The head of the Iranian side was a guy named Zarif, family name Javad Zarif. He was the foreign minister. His counterpart, when he was leading, was a guy named John Kelly. Did I have that right? John is his first name?
Yes, it's John
Kerry. The L's instead of R's, okay. Okay, let me tell you. The more he gave in, and please, an image that I used before with children. That's how the Iranians understand it. The more he gave, the weaker he appeared, and he at one time he had crutches. And the more he gave in, the bigger the crutches in the cartoons. This the Iranian government published. And I want to say something else, which is definitely going to get me in trouble, is that the leader of the country that John Kerry represented was, and he in some way has a particular color of his skin, right? In the Middle East, the lighter you are, the better you are. When you want to get married, you want a girl, a guy that is, obviously. You want a girl who's light-skinned, that's a good thing. The darker the skin, not so much. The more we gave in, the darker the cartoons of Obama became in the newspaper. Does that make sense from their cultural point of view now? So come, let us reason together, which is how American culture, at least it used to be. Let's sit down, we disagree, but we'll work it out. It doesn't work that way there. And the cartoons, especially on Obama, I'm not going to explain any further except to say that his facial features turned to a particular animal. I have the cartoons. No, not a bear.
Okay.
People have said it here.
Anyway.
This is what we're dealing with.
Okay.
We can make happen if we want.
I would like you to finish up before we take questions, just by telling me there are certain authors who write books and explain that when I sat down and met with this leader or that leader said to me the following. But that's in English. In a short answer.
That's a problem for me, as Ellen knows. Go ahead.
In a short answer, can you tell us, can we understand that to be the truth, or are they playing?
I will give you what happened. It was a joke during the Iranian hostage crisis when they had Americans. There was a bunch of Iranians with thugs with guns. And a guy in a cartoon with who's very clearly an American hostage. And they're opening the trunk of the car, and the American says, this is very Iranian from, oh, I've been waiting my whole life to be put into the trunk of your car. And then drive away, whatever. Zarif wrote in Persian, the Iranian guy that I mentioned, a book, and how he bamboozled and got Kerry to give in. We're friends. They went to each other's weddings. Kerry even cried at one point. The talking was that it's all in his book. There are others who've said this who were Americans who were involved in this whole thing. It's not just what the Iranian is. No. If I ask, okay, you're Yasser Arafat. I ask you, are you interested in peace? Of course I'm interested in peace. What's the concept of peace? They don't have one. But they know that I want to hear it. And if you were to see American government cables, I used to read all these things, you see at a government meeting that the ambassador, and of course everything's in English, says X, Y, and Z and all that. And he told me that. And the Americans, if he looked me in the face, and you seem quite interested in all of this, if I look at you in the face, and whatever I say to you, and we're talking, and I'm looking you directly in the eyes, I can't lie, because I'm an American. If someone is looking at you in the face, and he's lying, we will look away, we'll do something, we'll begin to blink. But in Iran especially, Yasser Arafat, and it's excellent, was beautiful. I can look you right in the face and lie to you 100%. And from my experience, all I can tell you is the worst were the people, as I said before, who spoke the best English. Is that true enough?
Yes.
Thank you.
I'd like to open up the floor to questions. Please make it a question.
When Obama was president, a plane was intercepted during the middle of the night, flying to Iran, filled with a very large amount of cash of multiple denominations, supposedly to pay off Shah's debt. What's that all about?
Can I ask you a question? Now, only from the other side. Whether that particular thing is true or not, but what do the Iranians know? I didn't say think. They know it is true. They know, the Iranians know it's true. Does it matter? Does anybody remember the Vincennes, this ship out in the Persian Gulf? And the Americans, by mistake, there was a passenger plane that left the Arab side of the Gulf and was going to Iran. And the Vincennes shot it down because it thought it was a military thing and was about to attack the ship. And these 260 or whatever it was, Iranians, the whole crew, everybody died. The Americans went nuts. Oh my God, we're so sorry, we didn't mean it. What did the Iranians know? That we were serious, and we did mean it. And they kept quoting it all the time, that we did it on purpose. And I only tell you that it was 10 days, and actually it was less than 10 days, that Khomeini, who was still alive, the guy who was the head of the Iranian Revolution, Khomeini stopped the Iran-Iraq War. Remember there was an Iran-Iraq War? And he said, we had no choice. We had to swallow a poison pill. Because Americans showed that they were serious, because we know they did it for real. And that's how, what you're asking, do I know the exact details? No, I don't. But my job is not to think like us. It's to think like the other side. And they know what you said is true. Did all sorts of things like that happen? I don't know of this particular instance. The answer is yes. I know for sure that these sorts of things. And in the present, the Biden administration, the same thing happened. They don't, first it was money which was in Korea that we freed up. And they promised that they're not going to use this to support terrorists. But you know, money is sort of fungible. I got money in this pocket and money in that pocket. Well, I can use this pocket instead of that. Oh, I didn't touch this pocket. This over and over. And there's a total of over $100 billion that in the last 4 years has made its way to Iran. Oil, 300,000 barrels is what Iran produced. It's now 3-4 million barrels. Oh, but we still have sanctions on them. Please, all I'm asking, we don't have to do what the Iranian government wants, but we need to use their culture to get what we want done. And a lot of the brakes on Israel, frankly, because someone had asked Israel in America. America has put huge, huge brakes on Israel. And Israel needs F-35 engines, and it was, it learned at the Wexler School, the Kennedy School in Harvard, the Israeli elites, that we're not going to have war anymore. There are ways of talking, diplomatic, everything works. And so the amount of pressure that the American, and so these guys go back to Israel, who were educated here, and it's the heads of the military, it's the diplomatic service of Israel, it's the media, and it's the academics. If you don't have the right views, you don't get sabbaticals in the United States. Academics, and I was one, no longer is about the truth. It's wokeism. This is what we're up against. This is the reality, and I hope we survive here.
Next question.
Could you explain simply the difference between Sunni Islam and Shia Islam?
It starts, and again, Here we are in 2024. Their prophet, Muhammad, supposedly died in 631. I say that because a lot of the modern research is very unsure about these things. He died. The question then becomes, who inherits the leadership of Islam? The Sunnis basically are the Meccan aristocracy. Johnny-come-latelys to Islam back then. The Shiites, the word Shia in Arabic, the Hebrew word is Si'a, it's the same language. Shia means the faction or party of Ali, that's Muhammad's son-in-law and cousin. And if you support the family, you're a Shiite. And if you support the Sunnis, then you support that. Now you say, come on, 631. That's history. Nobody cares about history. Excuse me, America, 3 minutes ago, doesn't matter. They know this, and they are fighting that war right now of who should run Islam. And the Sunni leaders are, these are basically most of the Arab states and a few others. They see that Iran is becoming strong and stronger and stronger. And who is allowing Iran to become stronger and stronger and stronger? The United States. So therefore, they see this as, you want to call it an alliance, I don't care what you want to call it. And who are they against? The Sunnis. And who else is with the Sunnis right now? The people along the, or at least the southern part of the Persian Gulf, again, where there's a lot of oil, the United Arab Emirates, Bahrain, and the Saudi government, they say to themselves, we can't rely on America, and we want to. It's the 800-pound gorilla. We want them. But if they won't, then there is the 250-pound gorilla in the area, who is Israel. And that's why they're all working together. And that's why just yesterday, or the day before, I think already, remember when Israel just bombed Yemen? Where they bombed in Yemen are the Shiite areas, because that's the ones that Iran is working with, because it's all Shiites. And the Sunnis, who are the majority in Yemen, what are the first thing as that whole thing was, as Iran and the Shiites were looking terrible, the Sunnis revolted. Will the Shiites be able to put down the revolt? We'll see. If not, but the moment they see weakness, boom, that's the time to. And who do you think the Sunnis in Yemen now support? Iran or Israel? I mean, this sounds weird, but the Saudi Arabia, listen, personally, I don't give a damn whether there is a formal peace agreement between Saudi Arabia and Israel. That's all the icing on the cake. The cake is the real serious part. That's all fine. What the Saudis and the Israelis are doing, and we know this from cartoons in the Saudi newspapers and bloggers and what they're able to say. And I don't want to attack you personally, but is this your wife beside you?
I think so.
Okay. I start to go on about your wife. There's this lady in this room who has these weird-looking glasses, and I describe you, but I never say your name. And what do they say? Where is the real Al-Aqsa? They don't talk about Jerusalem. They hate Jerusalem. It's a long story why. The real Al-Aqsa is 30 kilometers, about 16 miles from Mecca. And they go on, the bloggers in Saudi Arabia, and they say these things. And they give you the sources and how they know. They never talk about Jerusalem. They don't talk about Israel. But the message, everybody gets the message. You have to look for the subtleties. But America says, I told you this, you told me that, and you said it to me. It must be true. That's not how they work.
Okay, it's 6:15, and I know a lot of people want to get on to the next activity. Please feel free to come up and talk with Dr. Rhode. Thank you for being here, and I want to thank Dr. Rhode.